Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is R.L. Rousey. I am the Education Program's Artistic Director for the Sun Valley Summer Symphony. And usually it would be my job to introduce Samir Patel, our associate conductor, who would lead the chat tonight. But he's conducting the entire concert tonight. So it's my chance to go on. And I'm really excited because Samir has programmed an unbelievable program for tonight, and I'm excited to be able to talk about that for a minute. And I get something that Samir never gets. I get backup. Look at this. I've got a quartet hanging out behind me. This is the Harriman Quartet. They are all four rising seniors at Wood River High School, and they've been playing together since they were freshmen. And I asked them to come tonight because part of the work they've been doing is connected to us in a very real way. They're all students in the School of Music from the Sun Valley Summer Symphony. They all study privately in our core program. They all play in the Wood River High School Chamber Orchestra. But importantly, for us and for this talk, this quartet has been being mentored by Time for Three during the last 3 years. And I can in person in front of you all now promise that you will also be mentored next year by Time for Three, just in a new little way. You'll be talking to them over technology a bit more, as we wouldn't leave you high and dry in your senior year. But let me talk for a few minutes, if I can, before I ask these guys to play, about what's going on this season, or tonight in this concert, because Samir has programmed a really interesting collection of music all around this theme of stars and moon and sun. And boy, he's done a great job. It is indeed a concert for the whole family. And I'm not going to talk about the first piece at all, the Strauss that opens, except to say it's one of 9 movements, and you will immediately recognize it because this wonderful Strauss piece is indeed the theme from the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. So and I won't even sing the melody because I want you to wait to hear it. But from the first rumble, you will know what it is, and what a perfect way to kick off this evening. Samir has done a great job of choosing pieces that are familiar to us for other reasons. The second piece, Peer Gynt, Morning from Peer Gynt. It's also known as Morning Mood, and it has this beautiful play back and forth between the oboe and the flute as they sing this melody back and forth to each other. And it is absolutely, we all think of it as this Norwegian morning sound because it's Edvard Grieg. It's about as Norwegian as you can get, except he wrote it for the Ibsen version, as incidental music for the Ibsen version of Peer Gynt. And the notes in the script say, incidental music used as dawn, palm trees. Peer is sitting in his tree, using a wrenched off branch to defend himself against a group of monkeys. We think of it as Norwegian, but it was originally written to take place in a desert. So tonight, if you will give it a desert slant as you listen to it, and again, immediately recognizable from a few things, like the Bugs Bunny show, like the Wonder Years. It was used as Kevin was waking up in the morning before things turned sour when he discovered that he had acne. It was also in 2 video games, so like kids are going to go wild. They're going to go, that's from Army Men 2 or from Peggy, this PopCap game. So again, classical music becoming part of our social culture as it's used in other ways. And this amazing collection. Again, recognizable tunes as we move from there into Debussy and the Clair de Lune, but not just the piano as we're used to it, but an orchestrated version of Clair de Lune. I think, again, you'll find it fascinating. And again, it has all of these connections. Somebody's going to recognize it from James Dean's final film, Giant. I have to say that's not my connection to it, but I remember this scene, the scene outside of Bellagio's fountains in Ocean 11. Clair de Lune shows up. It also shows up in Twilight. Edward and Bella are listening to it in his room. It's classical music being used in a social context that we can connect it to a specific moment. I think that's really great. I texted Samir earlier today, right before his rehearsal. I think probably just a little bit too close to his rehearsal. I was rude, because I didn't look at my clock first. And I said, Samir, if you could have folks tonight notice 2 things, what would they be? And his answer was this. One was around the next piece on the concert. If you're going to look at these stars and sun and moon, then certainly you would want to include Holst, the planets. And we're going to do 2 of the movements of the Holst tonight. And one of his comments was around the planets. He said, I would love for people to note the fleetness of Mercury and the majesty. I mean, the fleet. Wait, yes, I got them backwards. Wait, my notes. See, Samir does this all without notes. I was intimidated. I thought I'll just do mine without notes too, and then I panicked. The fleetness of Mercury and the majesty of Jupiter, and of course Mercury is the winged messenger, and Jupiter by description is the bringer of jollity. But for Samir, it's about majesty. So listen for both things, if you will, the jollity and the majesty. I think you'll hear both of them inside of this movement. The Holst was interesting because it took him quite a while to write it. And he originally wrote them all as piano duets, except for Neptune, which was written as an organ solo. And then bit by bit, they became orchestrated. And by the time he was orchestrating these pieces, he had been heavily influenced by Stravinsky and even by Schoenberg. And I think, again, as you listen, you'll hear this sense of orchestral grandeur that sits behind these pieces. This is probably Holst's most popular, most famous work, though not his favorite. Holst is there are a number of references of Holst complaining about the popularity of the planets. Why do they like this piece? Why can't they like my other works? Why this one? This is just, this little thing anyway, artists, they are. But I think that's really interesting because I think if you think of the name Holst, immediately you go to the planets. It's so prominent. We have two more pieces on the concert, and one is by Mozart, and Mozart wrote a set of 12 variations on "À vous dirai-je maman," meaning would I tell you, Mum? But it's probably recognized more for its influence on another song. Would anybody like? Could I get you guys to maybe play the opening theme and? Da 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 da. Oh yeah, you're gonna hum along. Mozart's variations on this are sort of all over the place, and Samir is choosing a couple of them tonight. There are 12, and he will not do all 12 because we'll do a smattering of all of these pieces. You'll notice there are more pieces on this concert than on any other concert during the season, and yet will come out in the same amount of time as we do excerpts from to make it more family embracive, more kid embracive. But again, you think Mozart, very specific. And this melody, which had a life before Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, but it fits into Samir's theme for the night because of its reference here with Twinkle, Twinkle. The last piece is perhaps the most fascinating. What a perfect thing to end on this concert of stars and sun and moon, and that is Mason Bates's Mothership. And here's what Mason describes. This premiered, by the way, in 2011 in Sydney as a commission. It's a single movement piece, and I don't know whether Samir is doing the whole piece tonight or not. I did not ask. But this is what was written. This energetic opener imagines the orchestra as the mothership docked by several visiting soloists who offer brief but virtuosic riffs on the work's thematic material over action-packed electroacoustic orchestral figuration. So one of the most important instruments in this work tonight is indeed the laptop. As there is pre-recorded or electronic sound incorporated into the work of the orchestra, and it's played off of a laptop. So you have to search the orchestra to find out where the laptop is placed. It's often placed up near the percussion, and I wasn't at the rehearsal this afternoon, so I don't know where it is. But that was Samir's other request, was find the laptop. I don't think we're required to stand up and scream, "There it is," but finding it will be great. Well, here's something a critic wrote about this. I loved this. He said, "This is probably not his best work, but it showcases the orchestra's ability to be inclusive. Mothership is fun, and there's nothing wrong with that." I think you'll find the piece to be really exciting, dynamic, and the perfect finale for this evening of looking at our sun and moon and stars from orchestral standpoints. And again, I think Samir has done an outstanding job of programming pieces that folks of all ages will find fascinating. I'm looking forward to the concert, and then there's nothing new on the concert for me. I have to confess, did not until last night know the Elgar that was played. I want to know it intimately now. I was overwhelmed by its beauty and by its warmth in the second movement, and of course by the amazing way that it was performed and played. But tonight's concert, all familiar, and still I am excited about it. I want to shift gears for just a second and talk about what goes on with the Sun Valley Summer Symphony all year long. So many people think that the Sun Valley Summer Symphony is this few weeks in the summer, and indeed these few weeks are kind of important. Without them, everything else wouldn't get to happen. But all during the academic year, the symphony sponsors a school of music, and we offer training in piano, voice, and strings. At all levels. We partner with the Blaine County School Districts and with their private and schools throughout the valley to see how we can support the work that's going on in their classrooms, with elementary string programs, with beginning choral programs, and then we also support the work that goes on at the middle school and at the high school in the orchestra rooms. Indeed, Wood River High School now has 3 orchestras, and 10 or 11 years ago, well, when I arrived, there wasn't one. And then there were a few string players who got together and just sort of puffed up enough to look like, you know, they were more than a quartet. And but now 3 different orchestras. There's a freshman orchestra, a concert orchestra, and then a chamber orchestra. And that's pretty impressive. And I, without going too wild, I can say that it is the partnership between the symphony and the school district that has allowed this to happen. The school district remains committed to having music specialists in all of our classrooms. That's a really great thing because our commitment is to partner. We try very hard never to fill a gap that's left by one of the schools, but rather to go in to assist and to augment where they are doing great work. And there are great music specialists in the Valley. So that training goes on all year long. We have these lawn chats. Twice a year, Alistair does an Upbeat with Alistair to talk about something that matters to him on the season, a little insiders, a little backstage moment, if you will. And then in the Summer Music Institute takes place. 2 levels of programming. One is a broad-based program called The Experience. It's a week-long program. Kids from 2nd grade through high school, studying all the orchestral disciplines, piano, voice, and because of the amazing support that we receive from the symphony, or that the symphony receives from its donors, we are able to offer this to the students for merely the cost of a materials and registration fee. So students are doing that 1-week program for $90. And it is an amazing program, ending up with them performing on the pavilion stage. There's a second level of training. It's called The Encounter. It's a 2-week program. It's for advanced high school students and college-age folks. It focuses on piano, voice, and strings. And indeed, the piece you're going to hear right now is a piece that this quartet started to work on for the Summer Music Institute, for The Encounter. And I'm going to ask them to play just the first few minutes of this piece. Who wants to introduce the piece, Jorgen?
Hi, we're the Harriman Quartet, and this is Bedrich Smetana's From My Life Quartet in E minor.
that is obviously just a taste of the beginning, and they'll come back to play the end of the piece in a minute. But I would, first of all, could I introduce them all to you? Jorgen Lawrence, Erica Gourlay, Lance First, and Talia Rojas. The Harriman Quartet. So guys, I actually have a couple of questions for you all. Can you, would someone like to talk about what this process of being an ensemble for 3 years has been like? Good, bad, or ugly? Anybody? I'm going to pick somebody really soon here. Erica.
Well, at first we were great friends freshman year. I mean, we all have been in orchestra forever together, but we weren't really like the best of friends. And then we started doing a lot of quartet rehearsals once a week during freshman year, and then we transitioned into 2, 3, 4 the whole week. And there's been so much. We've always had our ups and downs, more ups and downs.
What are the downs?
Fighting. A lot. We had a lot of communication issues about when to meet and why, like, half the quartet wouldn't show up or no one would show up. There'd be one person there. I don't know. We just had a lot of issues, but we're super busy